We will now proceed to the debates. Our next item on the agenda is the report by Mrs. Dora Burkhardt on deforestation. I'd like to inform members that for all the debates in this part session, there will be no catch-the-eye procedure, no blue cards, and no points of order will be accepted. Furthermore, there are remote interventions from Parliament's liaison offices in the Member States foreseen. Now I will give the floor to our rapporteur, Mrs. Dora Burkhardt. 6 minutes.
Vielen Dank, liebe Kolleginnen.
Thank you, colleagues. I am joining you for this important debate from Berlin because we're in a situation which affects our daily lives. Morning coffee, sitting in the car, many of the things we do in our daily lives are a problem for our forests, and we are part of the problem. Forests are being burnt down or logged to make place for to grow goods that we want, raw materials such as palm oil, for example, and this all soy or beef, for example. This is a major contribution to our commerce. We can't have all these kinds of goods coming from areas such as the Amazon, in which forests have been changed to other use. What about the steaks that we enjoy barbecuing? They often come from areas where forests have been burnt down. Many of those who sell beef buy it from Brazilian businesses who burn down Amazon rainforests in spite of the fact that they've committed not to log forests. A well-known German car maker gets the leather for its car seats, buys from an Italian producer, which in turn buys it from Latin America, from unscrupulous businesses that are involved in logging. For example, in Paraguay, every 2 minutes an area the size of a football field was destroyed in Paraguay in 2019, and that's just one example of many. In 2019, primary rainforest was lost on the earth from the DRC, Indonesia, Brazil, etc., and the amount lost was the size of Belgium. No one should have to go to the supermarket and decide whether they want to buy products that damage rainforests or not. But currently there are no European rules that stop these products being sold in supermarkets. In the European Parliament, we have been preparing for the future by preparing a report which we'll be voting on this week with regard to deforestation. If a business wants to bring a product into Europe from elsewhere in the world, they need to make sure that it's been sourced from a partner that is not involved in logging rainforests or other destruction of natural habitats. Because the problem with deforestation, for example, is that it reduces biodiversity and also contributes to climate change. But it's also a social problem because the logging of forests often contributes to human rights violations. So European importers need to ensure that any product they import does not come from an area where human rights are violated. European businesses need to be liable under civil law for any damages caused. The businesses need to carry out their due diligence appropriately, because if we don't, but it needs to be binding, because otherwise it's simply a statement of intent without achieving anything. We don't want to see activities that destroy nature and violate human rights. I think that trade can become better if we have stricter European standards. We need to have a Green Deal that is not only within Europe but is responsible across the world. Many people believe that goods should be produced in an appropriate manner without destroying our planet. With this legislative framework, I think we can ensure fairer competition as well, because at the moment there are businesses that make a profit by destroying our environment. The European Parliament has this opportunity to put pressure on and provide an ambitious proposal to the Commission. Ursula von der Leyen said that she would take proposals from the Parliament seriously and propose legislation relating to them. We should recall that here in the Parliament and provide the Commissioner with a decent proposal so that there's no bitter taste when we drink our coffee or our hot chocolate. We in Europe want to play a leading role in nature protection and in preventing deforestation and supporting human rights. Please support the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Rapporteur. Now I give the floor to our next speaker, Mrs. Karlsbro, who speaks for the Committee on International Trade. 2 minutes, please.
Herr talman.
Chair, the forest is whispering about our ancestors. When I go through my forest at home, I can see generations of the work of generations. And this is what a friend of mine said when I asked, what does a forest mean to you? I come from a country where half of the country is a forest. It's our resource for the future. It creates growth, and generations of forest owners have ensured sustainability before this became an international term. And these are also the lungs of the world. And this provides biodiversity. It provides a place for us to enjoy calm and meditation. So this is absolutely essential for rescuing the climate. But at the same time, warmer climates threaten the forest. And of course, deforestation is a global problem. It threatens the climate, it threatens species, but it also threatens long-term economic growth. Illegal deforestation isn't just an environment problem. It creates poverty, and it also creates a risk for corruption. So working together for sustainable trade is very important, and we have to do this together with the business sector, and we have to do this with the civil society as well. The framework, FLECT, which promotes sustainable forestry, is one link in this chain. That's why we have to develop and strengthen this cooperation. We have to make it easier for countries and enterprises and foresters to use forestry products in a sustainable way. That benefits us, that benefits everyone, and it benefits the generations in the future. A strong European cooperation against deforestation is something we need to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Commissioner Sinkevičius.
Thank you. Honourable members, let me start by thanking this Parliament for its valuable work and for its continuous support to address what has become one of the main threats to our planet, global deforestation. And let me congratulate you, Ms. Burkhardt, and the entire Environment Committee on your important report, which calls for an EU legal framework to halt and reverse EU-driven global deforestation. It is good to see that we agree on the importance of this subject and that we share the sense of urgency. Our EU biodiversity strategy for 2030 stresses the importance of increasing the quantity, quality and resilience of our own forests. But while the area covered by forests in Europe increases, forest degradation and international deforestation threaten the well-being of all of us. Deforestation is a major source of greenhouse gas emission, causing climate change. It is pushing animals and plants to extinction and affecting the rights of indigenous peoples in some parts of the world. In short, it is akin to choking life on earth. Deforestation is also a complex problem and there is no easy solution. No major economy in the world has yet managed to eliminate products linked to deforestation for its supply chains. And yet, this is exactly what we have to do and what we plan to do. EU demand and consumption, our way of life, should not trigger deforestation and forest degradation. In fact, this should go for everyone. We have to break the link. Your report and the legislative initiative resolution, which this House will adopt tomorrow, is an extremely important contribution in this regard. We particularly appreciate that through this report, the European Parliament has been truly effective in drawing attention to the issue of deforestation. Public awareness and support are crucial if we really want to change things. The report addresses highly relevant issues and contains a number of important messages. It is certainly true that the limited uptake of voluntary schemes failed to deliver on the promise of reducing deforestation and that mandatory action is needed. Getting the product scope right and ensuring that it is scientifically based and regularly updated will definitely be a key aspect of any future action. And it is also true that we should not forget that high carbon stock and biodiversity-rich ecosystems other than forest, marine and coastal ecosystems, wetland, peatlands or savannas are equally threatened. Let me be clear, we are determined to act and to use the EU's economic weight to help protect, restore and sustainably manage the world's forests. As you probably know, we have already started preparatory work on a new legislative proposal to curtail the placing of products associated with deforestation or forest degradation on the European market. This objective is enshrined in the European Green Deal, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030 and Farm to Fork Strategy. This objective, we are currently working on an impact assessment and we have launched a public consultation that will run until December 10th. The adoption of this proposal is currently scheduled for next year, 2021, the second quarter. In the current impact assessment process and in line with our better regulation principle, we are of course assessing a variety of policy options. These include due diligence and bilateral agreements with third countries, but not only. We are, for example, studying the system put in place by the EU regulation to prevent, deter and eliminate illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, as well as different forms of verification systems, among other options. In parallel, we are also conducting a fitness check of the rules in place to fight illegal logging, and namely the EU timber regulation and the FLECT regulation to take action into account of our past experience and better understand what has worked and what has failed. We expect to finalise these fitness checks in early 2021 so that their results can duly inform the decision-making process. We have been implementing the due diligence system of the EU timber regulation for more than 7 years and have been negotiating and implementing FLECT voluntary partnership agreements for much longer. Let me be clear. We will certainly not shy away from proposing strong, mandatory action to address the problem. But we need to make sure that whatever we propose works, that it has the necessary impact on the ground, and that it is compatible with our WTO obligations. Let me conclude by saying that the report of the European Parliament constitutes an important contribution and goes beyond the legislative work of the Commission, meaning it should also translate in the work of other sectors, including working in partnership with producing countries to reduce pressures on forests and help them implement sustainable forest-based value chains. Once adopted by this House, we will carefully analyse your recommendation and will duly consider this when developing our proposal. Honourable members, between 1990 and 2020, about 10% of world's forest cover was destroyed, an area bigger than India. If deforestation were a nation, it would be the third biggest emitter of greenhouse gases after China and the US. We cannot underestimate this challenge and we have to act. This is also why our efforts to curtail the risk of deforestation and forest degradation feature prominently in the Commission's work programme for the next year, which College has adopted only 2 days ago. It is our responsibility to do our part to change this course, and it is in our hands to do it effectively already in upcoming months. Let us not waste this unique opportunity. Let us do this together. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Commissioner. For Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Häusling. 1 minute, please.
Ja, Frau Burkhardt, ich darf Ihnen recht herzlich.
Well, yes, let me congratulate you, Mrs. Burkhardt, for this report. It's a massive step forward, and I'd also like to thank the Commissioner for the measures you're suggesting, because there's been dramatic deforestation in recent years, and that's led to the conclusion that we have to do something. I think Europe is involved in more than 10% of deforestation because, for example, we import a great deal from Latin America, and these imports are the reason for mass investment in large-scale cattle grazing, so we bear a major responsibility. I mean, we could produce meat in Europe, and that's something that we should look at. Palm oil is another major issue. We have decided not to use palm oil as a renewable energy. That should have happened earlier. Free trade agreements, Commissioner, these are another thing. The Mercosur agreement, for example, we need to act differently with regard to those. And just to conclude, let me say that we also need to protect European forests. Let me recall that we have that problem of deforestation in Europe as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For Committee on Development, Mrs. Rose. 1 minute.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Cette semaine, notre Parlement se prononce.
Thank you, President. This week, the Parliament will be looking at the CAP, but how should we vote on that insufficient policy when the Amazon is subject to deforestation and forest fires? Our agricultural model is an industrial one. It's highly dependent on imports, and it's largely responsible for this situation, for deforestation, for the destruction of unique ecosystems, of the habitats of numerous animal species, and land grabbing, which acts to the detriment of local populations. We've known this for ages, but nothing has been done to solve it. The report we will be voting on has asking the EU to draw up a legal framework to counter deforestation and forest degradation. The report is based on the idea of due diligence and CSR. I'm the rapporteur in the Development Committee on environmental liability of companies, and which, through outsourcing, does sometimes lead to deforestation. If that's the case, legal cases should be brought. We need to ensure that, in fact, we keep going down this path. There should be no impunity. Ecocide, environmenticide, is something that needs to be judged in the courts. Thank you.